I've realized people get really disheartened very quickly if they don't get it 100% right off the bat. And I think that's a big misconception about what tuition is, that they feel like they don't have it or they can't do it.
Doing something that we want to do and we know like, oh, maybe this isn't the right way to go about this, or maybe I shouldn't go with this person, but I really want to go to this concert, something like that. So I think it's kind of a survival mechanism.
Welcome to the Citrine Path, a space for healing, transformation, and authentic connection. Join us as we explore spirituality, energy, personal growth, and the journeys that shape who we are. Light the path within and step into the conversation. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Citrine Path. So today's episode, we kind of teased about maybe doing an episode about. We're going to be doing an episode understanding your intuitive messages, what your intuition could look like, everything you may need to or want to know about that. So I'm super excited because whenever I was first starting, I wish I had something like this to kind of help you understand what was happening, how to tap in, what to look for, the whole nine. So, how are you doing today, Mom?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. We got some new coffee creamer, and I'm not 100% sure about it yet.
Mm,
Yeah. So, are you excited for us to get into this topic today?
yeah, I mean, it always seems to be something that we talk about quite a bit. But to put it in a format like this, I think is going to be a really useful tool. Because I have a lot of people that ask about how I knew what information I was getting, that it was an intuitive message or reading versus my own self. So I definitely know that there's a need out there. And even in the last, I don't know, few months, yours has changed and evolved. And so to explain that as well would I think is going to be super helpful.
Yeah, and I've heard people like, there's cool little tests you can do on like TikTok, or people will be like, "Oh, intuition test, like what color's the dress I'm wearing?" or something like that. And I've realized people get really disheartened very quickly if they don't get it 100% right off the bat. Um, and I think that's a big misconception about what tuition is, that they feel like they don't have it or they can't do it once they don't get those little TikTok videos correct. And I'll tell you what, those things, they're hard to get. Like, you won't get a straight up answer 100% of the time. So I'm excited to kind of give people back the power and help them understand maybe what they're getting from those.
Yeah, and just like everything else we've kind of talked about, it's a skill, it's a practice, it's something you have to like work on and believe in and commit to crafting it. So it's not just something that you're like, oh, I have it or I don't have it, because everybody has those like spidey sense tingles once in a while, or that, oh, I just feel this in my gut, this isn't a good place, or something like that. So that's what it is, like learning to tap into that and trusting it. And then there's so many different ways you could receive information too. So I know we're going to touch base on that too. And I think that's a big part too, is that not everybody receives their information through the same pathway and processes it the same.
Yeah. So what does intuition mean to you?
But to me, it's just a tool I use to help my patients and help myself. So it's kind of like advice from a person that has more experience than me, I guess would be like kind of how I look at it. Because I feel like it doesn't come from me. Like my intuition doesn't come from me. I don't really question it too much where it comes from, like in the moment. I just feel like it's from my higher power. So whatever you believe in, God, the universe, the source, whatever, insert that here. And then my ancestors and spiritual guides, loved ones who's passed over, I usually refer to them as my board of counsel. So I feel like it comes from them.
Yeah, I was gonna say pretty much the same thing. Like any information that you get that you shouldn't know, right? Or how is it possible you know that? It's coming from somewhere. So, yes, higher self, I also believe is a big one for me because your higher self isn't actually you. It's like the spirit form of yourself. It's kind of an interesting topic for us to maybe get into that one another episode. But yeah, past loved ones, ancestors, spirit guides, the whole nine. So, you think everybody is intuitive, you were mentioning?
I believe so. I couldn't imagine why not, because it's almost like a survival thing too. So your mind and your soul at heart, I don't think is going to ever put you in immediate danger. I think we override a lot of stuff by not listening to our intuition, doing something that we want to do and we know like, oh, maybe this isn't the right way to go about this, or maybe I shouldn't go with this person, but I really want to go to this concert, something like that. So I think it's kind of a survival mechanism. But on the same side as that, when you're exercising or running or anything like that, your body's trying to keep you alive. So it will give you signs and signals that, well, maybe you should slow down. Like, we don't want to totally exhaust ourselves. So there are points where learning your signals and how your body's trying to communicate with you and whoever you believe in, I think is a big aspect of it.
No, I love the idea that it's survival mechanism. I mean, for me, that makes so much sense of why it's even there. I think that's a cool way to think of it. But yeah, I think a lot of people, I'm guilty of it. I do it all the time too, where I question, oh, is this really true? Is this just my imagination? Am I just making this up? But then once I say something about what I'm getting or what, then it seems to make sense and it clicks for them. So then after you start accepting it and just saying the weird things, you'll get responses that you never thought you would have. It's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I've kind of learned is that not everybody wants to know. Not everybody needs to hear what's coming through and being said. So I have gotten to the point where I ask. I would have never, I would say before the last couple of years, I've kept a lot of it to myself, except for when I was like out at a bar and used it as a party trick. Because, like you were saying, I questioned it, thought it was weird, even weird to myself, and didn't understand why I needed to know this information about people. And then I used to be able to tap into it super easy. Like I wouldn't even have to think about it. But I think not acknowledging it and not believing in it kind of made it go away. And then now it's different. Like what I get is a little bit different. So who knows? Like maybe it's something that just evolved and I may never get back to how it was before, but who knows? I might. Like it's just kind of one of those you got to learn and go with the punches with it, and then do what works for you.
Yeah, and this same thing with me. Like when I was younger, there was all kinds of stories about the creepy houses we used to live in. And I would shove all of that stuff away. And then like it's taken me until now basically to start getting those little pieces of that back. And it's been a lot of hard work of, not questioning it, letting it come, speaking it if it needs to be spoken. But I think that was also a very strong tidbit of information about you don't always have to say everything because I think sometimes you can get information on people that they really don't want you to know. Like you can tap into their secrets that you shouldn't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny that you mentioned the creepy houses because I mean, not that I forgot, but I kind of forgot about how you used to react in some of the stories until just now when you said that. But that makes a lot of sense because you're more visual in your stuff now. But then now, we thought it was like all of a sudden, but now that you mentioned that, I'm like, ooh, you were always that way. So that's interesting.
Well, and then that leads me into another cool question. When was the first time you really realized you were receiving intuitive messages?
I would say it was in the last like 5 years, like pretty recently, because I didn't realize what was happening before that that's what it was. Like, I just thought that I was just really good at reading people's body language. But then some things I was like, where did that come out? But a lot of it would happen. So we'll go back to what I referred to earlier as a party trick. I used to go hang out at a bar because a family member worked there. So I would go hang out there and chit chat with them while they were working for a few hours, maybe have something to eat there, and then I would leave. But because I went there pretty much on the same days, there was people that was a pretty good group of regulars that was in the bar, and we would joke about it, and people would come in that I didn't know would walk into the bar, and I could rattle off a bunch of stuff about them. It was really funny because I could only usually do it to people that I didn't know. Usually it had to be like the first time I had an interaction with them. And then for the most part, what I got was pretty darn accurate. But it would be like two or three things would come across. But then as I was talking and saying it, random stuff would just come out of my mouth. Like it was like I had no filter. And so some of that stuff I was like, oh, that's really weird. I didn't even think that. Like I didn't get that before I started talking. But then shortly after, I wouldn't remember it, like exactly what I said. So that was I was talking about a party trick. But then I was just like, oh man, I'm just really good at reading people's body language and like picking up on their personalities by what they're wearing and stuff like that. Which looking back at now, I know is not true because I just wasn't that great at picking up reading people's body language. Like looking back and knowing what I know now. But at the time, I did not think of it as an intuitive information or download that I was getting on people. I just thought it was really funny thing to do and to see how accurate I could get. But normally, I didn't tell it to the people that I was reading. So I don't know if that would have changed if I would have been face to face with them and rattling stuff off. So I don't know. But now I have a really hard time doing that. Most of the time, I just get these. It's only usually when I'm working with somebody or working on them that I get them now. So, yeah, I don't know if that's. If you look at it a couple different ways, either that I could focus it easier, and block out the random people walking around me. Only every once in a while will something bother, and usually it's like a red flag warning type situation of somebody that's like around or in the same area that I am, more so of an intuitive download of information about them.
Yeah, and I think that is like the red warning label thing. I think that's a good thing to highlight because there's been times we're at a market together and somebody will like walk past or something and we'll both look at each other at the same time and be like, "Oh, not that guy." Like, don't talk to him. And it's most of the time it's not even that they look like they should be a questionable person. It like they look most time like a button-up dude. Um, and so I think that's important to say, hey, trust those little moments too, because you're getting that's an intuitive hit. If you just get the gut feeling of, oh, I shouldn't be here, shouldn't talk to them, that itself is an intuitive message. And I think you having Reiki has kind of given like your intuition a spot, like given it guardrails in a way, because whenever you're working, that's the time for it to do its thing. That's your moment for you to connect in and having the moment of meditation of, putting yourself into that mindset to do it, I think has probably benefited you more than you think with saying this is when you're going to do it. Because I know for me, while I'm working, even when I'm started doing like tuning forks on people before I was doing Reiki, I would instantly just know, oh, hey, does your knee hurt? Let me put this fork right here on your knee. And I just thought I would like, I didn't question it. I just said, oh yeah, no, like I just think you're sore right here for some reason. And 9 times out of 10, I was right. And then people thought, oh, well, it's because you could feel the vibration through the muscles. Well, I don't touch them. I just put the stick on them. And I can't feel reverberation through it. So I don't know, not for me to question. I think this leads us into a good, important section. So, how does your intuition communicate with you?
Originally, like we were just talking about, like I would just get random like tidbits of things. But then now that I'm like really trying to use it and like focusing on it, most of the time it's like a story sort of, I would say. So in the beginning of most of my sessions, I have like a little, for back lack of better words, we'll call it like a little interview that I like visit with my clients. And usually through that, I could like pick up on their emotions just because it's not that I could tap into them. It's just sitting with them and talking with them. It makes me feel a certain way. Like I could, like, it's almost like their emotions become my emotions. And it's not even the emotions that they're talking about. Like they could be portraying that they're happy and fine and everything's great. But then I get like a sadness feeling in myself. And I use that information to kind of be like, oh, okay, well let's work on, this or whatever's coming through. But then when I'm actually doing the work, so I like to do Reiki with light touch. So when I touch them, usually I feel it in my body. So if I put my hand on their hip, my hip will like feel weird or tingle. And that's like, it took me a little bit to understand that's what it was. But that's kind of my cue now of like, ooh, there's something with their hip. And so then I could ask them at the end, like, hey man, I was like feeling something with your hip, like what's going on there? And they might say like, oh, I haven't really noticed anything, blah blah blah. And then I could be like, oh well, the emotion that's usually held in the hip is this. Does this resonate with you? And what I have found, it's either one or the other. So then I can be like, okay, great. Well, let's work on some affirmations. Let's pull an oil. Let's do a little extra Reiki there and not focus on the pain and the like a damaged hip, but moving energy through it. Then I might take out a tuning fork and hit it with the tuning fork with the Reiki to help send that vibration on a different path and work through it that way. Every once in a while, like I was saying, like I get it like a story. So my brain takes information in very funny. So I can see something like a car and be like, oh wow, I remember a kid named Chris had that car in high school, but it was a different color, So then my brain like goes through this whole story, and then I'm like, oh, Chris's best friend was John, and John was dating this girl named Sally, and then I'd be like, oh, Sally, oh man, I really need to call her. So my brain just went through this whole story loop thing around to get to Sally. So sometimes it's like that. So I had a client a little while ago, for instance, I kept the whole time I kept picturing this stupid car. And it was from high school age, and we called it the banana cow car because it was this big boat of a car that at some point in its life was yellow. But at the time this kid owned it, it was spotted like a cow with primer and Bondo and some yellow here and there. And so I just kept seeing this stupid car. So at the end, telling the person, we're like going through all of the stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't know why this was happening, but I kept picturing this car. So I have to explain the story to them. Like, we called it the banana cow. This is why. This is what it looked like. This silly cowboy named Jeremy drove it. And then the person's face changed. Like, and all of a sudden she got really quiet. And then she goes, the friend I was just telling you about, his name was Jeremy, which was the same name of the dude that owned the car. So instead of just getting like the name, which sometimes I do get words, But instead of just giving me the name, I was thinking of something that was tied to the same thing. So I have learned, instead of just being like, oh, does a yellow car mean anything to you? You know, I just be like, hey, this is really weird, but somewhere in the story, something may relate to you. Like, let me know. And I would tell them the little story like I just did about the car. And most of the time, there is something in it that they're like, oh my God, that's like, that's it. That's it. But I had to do it a few times and say it. And even though it sounds weird, like even to myself sometimes, to get through the thing, to go through everything, to get back to what I'm actually supposed to be paying attention to. But that's just the way my brain processes it and works.
Yeah, and that's super interesting that I feel like that'd be so overwhelming to like have to work through this whole story in your head while you're trying to do Reiki on a client and then
Well,
remember all of that to relay it.
well, it happens pretty quick. And so it wasn't, my body wasn't telling me the whole story. I just kept seeing the freaking car, little flashes of the stupid car. And the car is nothing like anything I've ever seen before or since. And so like it's not like I'm like, oh, okay, well where did I know that from? Like it was very particular. And I have other people I know in my life that have the same name, but I think because that car was so distinct in the way it was that I could not interpretate it any other way.
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So my brain doesn't go through the whole story, but to explain to somebody this car, like I can't just call it a car that looks like a banana cow. Like they'd be like, "What?" I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, let me tell you." Like, so I have to tell them what, like, explain to them what the car looks like. And then I didn't even think about the name of the person. I was just telling them about it, and I'm like, because the cowboy guy that owned it was a character and a little silly on his own. So I was still telling her this whole story, but then as soon as I said his name, that was when I saw her physical body shift, and her facial expression change. So then that's when I knew, like, oh, that's what it was. That was what I was supposed to communicate. But I do sometimes get words. I'll just randomly get like blood sugar, blood sugar, blood sugar, blood sugar. And so I kind of got to another thing. It took me a while to kind of figure it out because when I meditate or do Reiki, my brain is not quiet, which was a big misinformation that I had. Like I thought if you meditated, you had to have a quiet mind or you weren't doing it right. So that took me a little bit to understand that. So things come through all the time, but I kind of have a rule of I pay attention to it if it comes through twice. So if it comes through once, I could just, it's a one off. Like my brain for some reason just went to it. I'll look into it later. If it comes through twice, it's something I'm supposed to pay attention to. And then I have to just decipher with myself if it's for me or my patient or my client. Because sometimes I feel like I get messages that are meant for me and not for them. So I kind of have a conversation with myself or my guides when I'm doing Reiki. And I've kind of leaned on the muscle testing. So I just do the sway test while I'm just standing there with my hands on them. If whatever has came through a couple times, then I will just ask myself, like I don't say it out loud, I say it to myself, is this for my client? And then wait for my body to respond with a sway. Sometimes I'll just like know that it is once I ask it, and then sometimes I don't, like it's the sway test. And that's again something that when I was doing it, I was just like, oh, I wonder if this will help. And then I tried it. And then again, even with the sway testing and the muscle testing, it's something you have to practice, like to get not more sensitive to it, but just to know what your body's interpreting, what it's trying to say when it moves. Yeah. So it's normally how my intuition comes to me when I'm working on a client.
So you said you like you hear words. Is it an audible hear or is it like your little subconscious voice in your brain?
I would say it's just something I think. Like it's just like if you're sitting here and you're like, oh man, what do I have to do tomorrow? And your brain is like just running through your schedule for tomorrow. It's something like that. I don't necessarily hear it audibly, like I'm talking to myself. It's just a thought that comes in. So I don't hear it outside of my head. It's just like a thought that pops in. But usually it's like one or two words, and it will just be like every once in a while it will pop in. Only a few times it was like over and over again, like really short together. So like blood sugar, blood sugar, blood sugar, blood sugar. Like other than other times it's like blood sugar, and then I'll do something else, and I'll move to like do a couple different hand positions, and then it'll be like blood sugar. So then I'll know like okay, that's the second time it came through. I'm gonna keep track of that. Most of the time, once I acknowledge it, it usually goes away. Sometimes I'll hear it again a couple more times, but yeah, usually once I establish if it's for me or my client and they acknowledge what it is and what it's saying, usually it's not so in my face.
Yeah, so for me, like even when I read a book or anything, like I almost have like a narrator voice in my head, and I guess that's not normal. So, but anyways, that's the little voice that I hear say something. It's not an external voice, and it sounds like myself. And then sometimes like I'll see pictures in my because I do my whole session with my eyes shut and I can walk around my people and touch them like, go through the hand placements of Reiki with my eyes shut the whole thing. So I'll see little blips of things like blips of like a suitcase. And to me, that means like they're going on a journey, whether that's like a spiritual journey or an actual one. I don't know, but it's something. Um, And then sometimes I'll have the feeling of something. So if somebody's worried about their mom, if I'm doing Reiki on them, I'll have a feeling of like when I'm with you. If, like, for example, back in, oh man, it was December, I had the feeling within my body that there was like a big change coming. And there was like excitement and kind of worry at the same time that I was feeling emotionally in my body. And then I just knew it was connected to career. So, like I told her, hey, this is like I'm having this feeling in my body. I'm no, it's about career. I think there's going to be a big career change. Like, I think it's going to be related to management. And then she's like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I don't think so." I was like, "Okay, well, I'm just saying what I feel because it's like I'm the same way if you. If I don't acknowledge it or say something, it won't go away. It will just repeat and repeat and repeat. And as soon as I say something, it goes away. So I was like, that's just what I felt. I'm not sure. Like it might be something in the future. Just keep an eye out for it. Well, 2 months ago, I got word that her whole where she worked pretty much shut down, and they were making their own thing off to the side. So it was a big management change, a big career change. It was nervous. She was nervous about it because it's something so different, but was also so excited because they were making it something of their own. So that's kind of how like they all connect in together. And it's kind of interesting trying to decipher what all of this means.
Yeah, but you've also noticed that, especially in the last few months, that things have changed because now you sense other people's people.
Yeah. So we kind of mentioned like, we lived in a creepy house when I was younger. I would see a lot of spirits when I was younger, like to the point I would walk through a doorway, stop and walk around them, and there was nothing there. And I even remember when I was like 6 or 7, like the whole telltale story of these famous sidekicks. They would wake up and see people standing at the end of their bed, and then I kind of would just shove it away. Like I would just ignore it. I wouldn't nothing to them, and they eventually disappeared. Um, but recently, like over the past 5 years, I've been trying to tap into it once again. And so while I'm doing Reiki on people, I will see like a picture of somebody in my head, like almost my imagination of people just standing there. And I can describe what they look like, what their hair colors are, what clothes they're wearing, the whole nine yards. And I'll explain it to people and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, that's my mom." And a lot of the times I'll have, like I said, the feeling if I'm with a mom, I'll have that feeling of when I'm with you and with a picture of somebody. Or if I'm with, my brother, for example, I'll have that feeling in my body of as I'm with him, if it's somebody's brother. Um, or if I don't have a relation that I have like in this world, if it's like a long lost relative, I don't really have any of those that I know of. So, um, I'll just see the pictures of people and then I will just know things. Um, know like if they had like a rough relationship, I'll just know if they're sorry. And then it's super interesting because I'll say it to them and then they'll say yes. And then I always think of that fun just for my own amusement. I like to get my dowsing rods out because that's a tangible thing that I can see and that they can see. And then it's always just fun to play with that.
And have you noticed that your intuitive messages comes through different depending on the situation or like what you're doing? Because I know you've talked about when you're doing Reiki, it comes through. But have you noticed it when you're not doing Reiki? Is it different?
We kind of talked about in an episode before that when I did some hypnosis stuff to like help unlock intuitive gifts and it kind of flipped all my light switches on. So then I had to run around and scramble for a couple of days trying to figure out which ones I needed to turn off. So anytime that I'm wanting to use them, I like sit and say, okay, it's go time to myself. And that's when I allow it to come through. There's things like, sometimes I'll be getting ready to go somewhere, like, and I'll just say, hey, let's just wait 5 minutes for a second. Like, I don't know why, but I think we just need to wait 5 minutes. That's an intuitive hit. So if it's something to do with my safety or my family's, it still comes through. But I don't allow, like you said, the strangers or anything like that, or that kind of stuff to come through unless I'm wanting to use it because it's just too much. It's too much.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Reiki was my light switch moment after I got when I first did my Reiki level 1. It was a huge I mean, I was always sensitive to people's stuff. But after that, it was kind of overwhelming. And I think that's why it took me so long to finish my Reiki training and go to the next level because I was like, oh man, if level 1 did this and each level is supposed to be like more, I was like, I don't need any more of this right now.
Yeah, but I think the most important thing for everybody is if you have intuition and it feels overwhelming, give it guardrails. Think of it like the bumpers on a bowling alley. You have to stay within this area when I don't want it to be turned on all the way. Um, because it's intuition is meant to be a helping hand through life. It's not supposed to hinder your life. So if you can't even go into Walmart and walk around and think about what you need to get for dinner, then it's too much. Like it's not supposed to impact you like that.
That is a really good point because sometimes it can feel like a slap in the face of what you're getting. But I think doing like grounding techniques, especially like the Palladian grounding technique that we talked about, I think that would be a really good time to like be like, wow, this is a lot. I'm gonna send this energy away, so down your slinky tube that you refer it to for later. So doing stuff like that. And then the aura cleansing, which we have not gone into too deep about that one. But yeah, those are different tools that you could use to kind of put yourself in your bubble so that way you could process and handle things that are coming through and allow you to get through situations, especially when you're more new to what's coming in. I think was super helpful for me. For a long time, the only thing I really knew was being inside my rainbow bubble. So I imagined myself in a bubble and things were bouncing off of it was like the easiest way for me. But like you said, the inner dialogue, some people have a hard time with that too. You
Yeah,
got to
and the
find
bubble
what
is a
works.
great spot too that I think because I have a bubble also. Mine's blue and yellow. Um, but you can make your bubble whatever you want it to be. And it's like a shield around you, so it blocks out other people's stuff. Um, because like you said, like I get physical pain sometimes too. And we'll play the fun game of, hey, are you hurting today? Like, is this my hurt? Is this your hurt? If you feel other people's pain, if somebody goes by and like, let's use Walmart again, for example, if you go to pick up a cucumber, someone touched that same cucumber before you that had really bad like kidney pain, and you touch it, I'll sometimes feel it. So again, if you go through touching all this stuff that other people touched, it's a lot. So put up a bubble around yourself and keep everybody else's stuff off of you. I think this is a great spot to move on to the different clairs. So for those who don't know what the clairs are the different way that your intuition comes to you. So think of all your different senses, right? You simply just knowing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Those are all different clairs. Do you have anything you want to talk about those, Mom?
I'll just share me and my silliness the other day. So I've known about the clairs, and there's there's a lot of them. There's like 7 main ones, and I knew about them. I knew about them, but for some reason, it did not dawn on me, or my brain did not communicate to myself that those were different ways to interpret intuitiveness, which is really funny because I thought I had learned something new and was like, oh my gosh, this just totally made sense. And I called you and you're like, uh, yeah, mom. And then when I was explaining to you, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a silly Willy, because even explaining it, I was like, I am so silly. I knew that. Like, yeah. So, but it was just a different way of thinking of it and the way my brain processed it. And I was thinking of the 3 categories of intuition, which now they escape me, but it has to do with the gut feeling, the action, and the knowing. So, like, the gut feeling, almost everybody who's listening has probably at one point or another been like, ooh, my gut feeling tells me not to do this. Um, and then the action intuition is like, I like using the analogy of tennis. So you're playing tennis and the person shifts their body and you just know that the ball is going to go this direction, bounce here, and then come back this way. Like, your intuition is telling you because of the information you know from playing the sport and seeing what they're doing, where your body needs to move. So, like, that's the action one. And then the other one is just the knowing. So, um, and that's, I think it's historical intuition. But for some reason, you just know the answer. Like, you just know what you're supposed to do, or you know what the person's going to say.
Yeah, and like I think it was interesting because I've always heard people say, that the clairs were only for like psychic people, or people who are like mediums. Like they'll say, oh, yeah, no, I'm a clear cognizant, clear audience, psychic, medium, whatever, right? Okay, that's just them explaining to people how they get their information. In my mind, for the longest time, I was like, oh, I'm not them. I can't have that. And then now, oh, wait, maybe I am. But they were just explaining how that information comes. Like, the only reason why they're getting that information is because they've worked on those muscles, they've tapped into that. And I believe sometimes people are just born naturally, more strong in some areas than other people. Just, I don't know if it's based off bloodlines or if it's just what your soul decided it wanted to do, but every single person has them. And I think you can strengthen them if there's one that you want to work on more. Like, for example, if you want to physically see things, then you have to work on, like, sit down and meditate and tell your guides, hey, this is something that I want. This is something I want to work on. And then you have to really pay attention. And I don't mean like, you know, just walking by people and be like, oh, look, they got a red shirt on and just tootle your way past. Like, sit and look at somebody for a second and almost put yourself in a meditative state and see what you can see. Kind of like with Dad with On the Gojo episode, he was talking about reading people's auras, and kind of look past people. So, him seeing auras is technically him physically seeing their energy field, right? So, the same idea. Look past somebody, see what you can pick up on, see what you can notice about them. And that's a way you can strengthen that clair. If you want to like audibly hear things, same thing, ask your guides, tell them this is what I want. I want to open this clair. I want to strengthen this one. And then if you're just sitting in a park, start by closing your eyes and listening to every individual sound that you can. Like, tune every other sound out. And for example, if the kids are swinging on a swing, tune into just that sound of those kids swinging on that swing and make everything else disappear. And slowly, you'll be able to start hearing things in between the noises that should be there.
Yeah, for that one, I also really like to use music. So put on something that's just instruments and try to pick out one instrument out of the all the ones that are playing. So like pick out the guitar, pick out the piano, and try to focus on it to where you get to where that's all you hear. Um, is a really good one.
Yeah, I love that because then, you can go back and listen to the same song and then see what you could pick out after that. So why do you think that people second guess their intuition so much?
I think more so our society that we've been raised in. Because even you hit it on the head a little bit ago when you're like, oh, I couldn't have the clairs because I'm not psychic. But it's not unusual to be psychic, I don't think. I think it's just that I think a lot of it goes back to like if you asked if everybody was born with it, I think it kind of falls on the same thing. Like I was pretty open to weirdness and like when you were having all your little sightings as a kid, I didn't necessarily dismiss it, but I didn't necessarily encourage it. And when you were, most of the time you were little, like this was really before you were talking. So it wasn't something that we could really like explain to you and talk through with you. It was just little things that you were doing, like your move around stuff, like you were talking about. A few of your children see things and know things. And then even at first you were kind of like, whoa, this is a little weird. Like, I don't really know how to respond to this. So it took you a little bit to kind of adjust to it, but you made it very, oh, wow, okay, well, that's great that you have that friend. Like, can you tell them that they need to go away? It's dinner time. Like you thought of it very logically and talked about it very logically, and didn't make it like a scary thing. Like, so I think how we're raised and what we're advised to do with it is a big thing. Yeah. So, and it seems to be more acceptable, I would say, in the last few years than it has been before. Because I think if I would have talked about this when I was in high school, people would have thought that I was weird and crazy. I probably would have been picked on and teased about it. So I didn't really say anything about it. I kept it to myself. But now people are like, "Oh my gosh, are you picking anything up on me? Like what's my energy telling me today?" Like people want to know. And I've had a lot of people be like, how do you tap into it? I feel like I used to have it and shut it out and that kind of stuff. So I think more people are open to it now. If we're more open to it, then our children are going to be more open to it, and then so on and so on. So I think even in just a few generations, it's going to be a more acceptable thing and more like the more of the normal than it has been. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, 100% makes sense. Yeah, because if, you're told that, oh no, there's nothing there. You're wrong, then yeah, you're gonna question and push it away. And then if you get older, I always question if I'm gonna be wrong. Like I always worry about it because I'm like, man, they're gonna think I'm crazy. Like they're gonna, not believe anything else I have to say about anything. But for ex that same example of, that person that came and see me in December and her career changing, like I trusted it and just said it. And it came true 6 months later. So, and what if you're wrong? Like maybe what if you did interpret the message wrong or what have you? It's not going to be the end of the world. Like if you're first learning, you got to start somewhere. It's just like riding a bike. You fall a couple of times, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, so true. And, kind of like what you were saying, when I see a client for the first time, I have a little spiel in the beginning of the appointment that I'd be like, "Hey, this is what my Reiki looks like. This is how I do it. These are, kind of give them a rundown of what their appointment is going to be like so they know." And then I tell them I get intuitive information, sometimes physical, sometimes audible. And if you would like me to share this with you at the end, please let me know. And we've gotten through the appointment and gotten to the end. And then I'll ask them, hey, would you like me to share my intuitive that I got off of you? Some people just say no. They don't need to know. And so I'll be like, hey, great. And then other people are like, oh, yeah, totally into it. But then after a few appointments, that person that said no, they'll be like, oh my gosh, tell me, do it. I want to know all of the stuff. Even just giving the person the option of hearing it, I think is good because then it's not on you to be like, oh no, because I've heard people say like, oh no, I need to tell them otherwise it affects me physically. Well, great, give them an option of hearing it or not, and then like you didn't tell that lady you're gonna get fired, like so learning how to present it to them of being like, okay, there's gonna be a change with something with career on a management level. I'm not sure what this means, but just be like, oh man, just keep this in the back of your mind, however you present it. Like, so being finessed about it. And then not everything, like you were saying, if it feels secret, if it feels like it shouldn't be shared, don't share it. Like, or you could be like, okay, well, is this what it is? Like to yourself. And maybe that's something to work on at a future appointment. Like maybe when your person is a little bit more comfortable with you, that will come forth and you'll like it will be shared. But be respectful of the way you present the information to.
Yeah, so for each one of my people who come and see me, I have a piece of paper where I like keep track of what their chakras looked like before, like the beginning of the appointment versus the end of the appointment. And then I gave myself a spot at the bottom to like write myself notes. So in those notes, I'll write down like if, for example, if we were working on a specific body part and the emotions connected to that, I'll write that in that space. If there was like a theme for the appointment that came through, I would write that down there. But I'll also write down those messages that I feel like they didn't need to hear. I'll write them in that spot because A, it gets it out of my head. I'm able to put it somewhere. But then in a later date, if that comes up, I could be like, oh, look here, when I seen you on July 16th or whatever, this is what came through then. And then you could have like not really a record, but have somewhere you could let it out. I think it's a cool little way for us to be able to look back and get it off me.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes into another really good part of it is doubting it. So the more I've learned to share it and to get people's feedback, kind of was like, okay, so maybe I'm not so crazy. Maybe I'm not just making this up. But even if it's something so far out there that I'm like, man, I have no idea that what this is talking about. Like you were saying, writing it down. Like write it in a journal or in the note section in your cell phone or something like that. Because I don't remember a lot of my intuition stuff that comes through on my clients. Like we'll have a really good breakthrough session and all of this stuff, and then they'll text me the next day and be like, "Okay, what'd you say about this?" And I'll be like, "I'm really sorry, I don't recall details about most of it." But I think that's a way like we were saying, my body and brain protects myself because if I had everybody's stuff floating around in my head all the time, that would be a lot of stuff. So I think that's kind of the other thing too is that you think you're going to remember but you won't. So if you feel like you're getting a intuition hit or a download, journal about it. Write it down. Or you get a dream that's like, oh man, that dream felt different. Write it down. Because some of the information in there might be important later, or you might not think it's a very important thing, and then something happened, you'd be like, oh my gosh, where did I see this before, or something like that.
Or I've even had the weird thing where, like, while I'm doing a session with somebody, I will have a flash of that dream that I had then. So then I'll go back to the like where I wrote my dreams down and be like, "Hey, what was happening in this dream and why did I see this flash of this dream all of a sudden out of nowhere?" So your sometimes your intuition can do some funky stuff and trying to, like you said, you think you're gonna remember, but you don't. At least I don't for sure. People can become dependent on intuitive messages. And I think a lot of people get hung up on this, for good and for bad. It's just like I'll tell people this even when you're getting a card reading or if I'm using my dowsing rods or anything like that, right? You're getting messages from tarot cards, from the dowsing rods, from yourself based off of the path and trajectory you're on in this moment, right? So, especially if it's about the future. If something changes and the person you're getting the hit about, if you do, if the world, if something changes the trajectory you're on, the outcome is going to be different in the future. So, that hit's not going to be right. People will get like intuitive messages or get visions about the future or whatever they want to call it. And that's what their whole life's about. And they get so hung up on it, they forget that yeah, you're still in a meat suit. You're still supposed to be doing the thing while you're here. Intuitive messages, like you said, are survival too. They're supposed to help us here. They're not supposed to control our lives.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, even the same thing, you could go as far as the messages in fortune cookies. Yeah, they might have like a really good like message or heartfelt saying of some sort. But yeah, take it for what I hate to say like face value, but because even after, so this is another thing to think of too. Like, let's say, like you said, the tarot card, they could pull like three or four cards, and you're still pulling from the same energy, so it's still done at the same moment. But they might see the first two or three cards, and something shifts in them, so the rest of the cards don't have as much punch to it because something's already changed. So like when you pull the death card, everybody automatically thinks is it is something bad, but it doesn't always necessarily need to be bad. So it's a good tool to use, but like you're saying, definitely don't live your life by it and don't be like, "Oh, well I have to do this because my tarot card message said I had to." Because if you pulled another set of cards or did another reading 5 minutes later, most likely it's going to be different because it could be tapping into something different. It could be a different part of your aspect of your journey. Something could have changed from the time before. Does it make them either one of them less significant, or maybe you're just interpreting it different than they were trying to give it to you? coming.
Yeah, and I've like seen on like My Strange Addiction and these crazy shows about people calling into like psychic hotlines, like an ungodly amount of times. I feel like that is becoming too dependent on them. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to, at that point, you're almost trying to get people to make all of your decisions and live your life for you when that's not while you're here. Like you're supposed to still make these decisions. This is your life lessons you're trying to and need to learn. And I think a lot of people can get addicted to it just like you can anything else in life. Because, I mean, it is a cool feeling when somebody tells you something or you've come up with something on your own and it comes true. Then you're like, oh man, what else can I know? Right? What else can I know? And I'm guilty of this too, where then I'm like, okay, I want to, like, every minute of every day, I want to like meditate and try and do this and do that. But we're not supposed to live in that way.
You're talking about trying to meditate to get like a download or information.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is, and this has kind of been a theme for this season, it seems like I think I say that every episode we've done so far. Trusting yourself. Truly deep down, trusting and loving and have confidence in yourself will go a long ways. Everybody knows what they need, what's best for them, but trying to develop that and interpret the information that's coming through is only going to come from trusting yourself, having confidence in yourself, and loving yourself, and knowing that you have the power to do that, that you don't have to pay somebody else to give you that information.
Yeah. And I think that, because I can't get messages about myself. And just like you've mentioned before to me, that you can't pick up things about yourself, like health wise, like I can get little insights. Like I said, just wait a couple minutes before you leave. But as far as like picking up on like, why is my arm hurting? Like, is it emotional? Is it a physical pain? Like, why is it a physical, that kind of thing? I can't do that myself. Seeing somebody else for those moments is good. Like, I'll even call you and be like, "Hey, why is this hurting?" Like for Easter, you came up to me and you're like, "Why is my arm hurting? I don't understand." But oh shit, I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I'll jump in here
Okay.
because even with those scenarios that you just said, all I did was ask you questions and you were able to figure it out. You're right. Like I can't like some of the health issues I've had lately. A couple of people are like, "Well, what are you energetically getting off that?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. Like, I don't have a clue. I can't tap into it at all." But I think part of that is like that's my weakness that I really don't care to know. Like I like helping others and I like that aspect of it. And just like everything else, like I give everybody else really good advice and can tell them to do like some really cool stuff. But then I don't do it myself. So I think that kind of goes back to having confidence in yourself, loving yourself, putting yourself as a priority, because you eventually got there by me just asking you questions. But again, having somebody to bounce that off of to where you weren't doubting yourself.
Yes. So if somebody was trying to strengthen their intuition today, what are some tips you would give them?
Don't worry about being right or wrong. Just take the information in, put it in your, like you were saying, your journal or your box to where you could recall it later. Again, it's not always so black and white about things, and it's just like anything else you do. You're gonna suck at it until you're good at it.
The best place where I started for me was understanding my clairs. Understanding that how I was going to get information wasn't going to be the same way you were going to get information. The lady on TV was getting information. And not be disheartened that it's not the same because everybody's not the same.
Yeah.
So, sit down and meditate and like really figure out how you're getting information, like common themes through your life of, okay, so in this moment, I felt this gut feeling about this situation. Was there anything else happening in that moment I was feeling? Journal about it, write it down. And then, okay, when I met this lady at this time, what did I feel? Why did I feel this way? What things was I thinking about in that moment? Write it all down. And then understanding like every little time that you talk to somebody or you go somewhere, if you think about people, if you think about things, if you randomly have a song pop into your head, pay attention to the song. Because sometimes the songs will have things within themselves, whether it's like the name, the lyrics of it, a memory connected to that song, all of those things will click into place eventually as well.
To kind of hit on what you're just saying, oh my gosh, his name just escaped me. But on social media and his TV show, I think he's called Hollywood's Medium. But anyway, so you know who I'm talking about? The
Yes,
young
yes, yes,
guy.
yes.
Okay, he scribbles and draws. So that's his way of kind of meditating and tuning out, is that he scribbles and draws and stuff comes to him. You know, his story is really fascinating because he didn't realize what it was. And he was in school, he was school age, and he was doing a project at school, and then all of a sudden got stuff. And then his teacher had left, was on leave for a little bit because a relative had died. He got an intuitive message from her loved one who had passed away. And he did not know that, what was going on. And he had like seen her in the hall or something and like just knew to ask about, I believe it was her grandma. And the teacher like was like blown away because she literally just got back from her funeral and he didn't know. And then years later, they reconnected on his show and they like talked about it and he like did a reading for her. He didn't know what was going on, but he just knew that, you know, like, oh, and just was casually sharing it. That's how he built his thing and knew that that was his thing. So I can't doodle, I can't draw to save my life, but I could sit there and just sit still and zone out. I'm really good at that. So then the way that we're going to tap into that meditated state is going to be different for everybody too.
There's millions of different ways that you can do it. And I don't think you can tap into your intuition in a wrong way because all you're doing is connecting the world around you. Like you said, your higher power, whatever you believe in, your higher self, past loved ones, ancestors, angels, whatever you want to call them or whoever you think you have, that's who you're tapping into. That's who you're connecting with. You know, if you want to put on music and put on like frequency music and sit and meditate and put like a dark cloth over your eyes so you like shut all your senses off. If that helps you tap in, do that. If you want to go sit out in the woods, like that's what my dad does, right? With On the Go Joe, he goes and sits in the woods and literally will just sit there and do nothing. And that's how he taps into his intuition and like connects and strengthens that connection. Or if you want to draw, sometimes for me, the best way that I connect with my intuition is gardening. I'll just go sit out there and pull weeds. Just anything that allows your brain to shut off and make room for space for other things to come in. Because there's so much we're constantly doing of on our phones. If we're, always listening to music, there's always people talking, TVs, all of these things. There's not enough space for your intuition to come through. So, going on a walk, whatever works for you is what is going to work for you.
What would you say to somebody who was just beginning and just learning to trust their intuition? What's one thing that you would say to them?
Well, I would first say, like, good job, because it's a hard thing to come to conclusion with, right? There's going to be a lot of moments when you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to realize a lot about yourself that you never knew before, whether it be what you like, if other people think about you, or if you're afraid of being wrong, or if you're afraid of, X, Y, and Z, whatever external force. Those are all things that are going to come forward. Then, it's going to be a battle of figuring out, okay, what am I supposed to listen to? What am I supposed to notice? What is this? What is that? And those are all things that you have to answer for yourself, because we can maybe give you our experiences. You could talk to other people and they can give you their experience, but no one's an expert on this because it's so different and so vast and so specific to each individual person. Tapping into your intuition is truly a journey within itself, like excluding anything else, because, it includes the shadow work, it includes dedication to yourself, it includes, all of these different things that if you don't have all of the pieces together, it's not going to be 100% right. So make sure you stay dedicated to it. Don't give up on it because it is hard. And even if you do get hits wrong, like we said before, just keep going. Don't stop, because you're going to get stronger because of it in so many different aspects.
This is something that we're also here to help with. Like, yes, we want to give you the tools and the knowledge and the confidence to help yourself, but both of us do help clients with this. So again, feel free to reach out to myself or Amber. We can do local appointments or a virtual appointment and help you. We have several different techniques using Reiki and sound and oils to help move stagnant energy, help unblock emotional blockage, help aid you in tapping in to some of this work that we're doing and how we're using this. So please, please, if you have any questions, feel like this is something that has recently been awakened within you and you just need somebody to talk to about it, just know that we are here for that. And then we have lots of resources that we can turn you on to and things that we can help on a lot of different aspects to help you on your journey with this because it is weird and it is an interesting path. And like I said, sometimes it just slaps you right in the face and you need somebody to just be like, "Oh no, that's okay. You're not crazy." So please feel free to reach out. Just give yourself grace because there's been many times that I'm like, "Oh man, this is really cool. I think I finally got this figured out." And then something else pops up and I'm like, "Whoa, wasn't expecting that." Like, when did that start happening? So then you kind of got to adjust and look at things a little bit different. But it's never been necessarily a bad thing. It just, like I said, slapped me right in the face. But then you adjust and you learn, and then something new comes along. But that seems to be the story of life in most cases.
Right? Yeah. And it's always developing and always changing. So even if you feel like you got one clear down and you're like, hey, this is my path, this is my one, then all of a sudden you're gonna be doing something and another clear is gonna kick on and you're gonna be thrown off your path again and think that, you know, the train's derailed. You just are picking up momentum along the way. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Have so much fun figuring all this out. Welcome to the dark side, and we will see you all in the next episode. Thank you for walking the path with us. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep following your light. The views and experiences shared on Citrine Path are for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes only and are not intended as medical, psychological, or professional advice.